Today, the universe does not whisper. It does not suggest. It demands. It demands that you stop hiding behind old patterns, old excuses, old stories, and reclaim what has always been yours, your power. This is not a day for lightness. It is a day of weight, of gravity, of foundation. It is the day that Pluto, the architect of the soul, the lord of death and rebirth, stops walking backward in the shadows of our psyche and resumes its direct motion. Think of this as the awakening of a tectonic force in your inner world. For the past few months, as it moved in retrograde, it forced us to look at the cracks in our foundation. It illuminated our compulsions, our toxic power dynamics, our most well-guarded shadows. It was a period of internal review, uncomfortable and absolutely necessary. Now the inspection is over. The contemplation phase has ended. What was revealed in the shadows can no longer be ignored. What was tolerated out of weakness can no longer be sustained. Pluto direct doesn't come to negotiate, it comes to execute. It brings with it the energy of consequence, of undeniable truth, and of radical reconstruction. This video is not a comfort. It is a summons, a call to personal sovereignty, to radical responsibility over your energetic field. It is a guide for the conscious demolition of what is weak and for the deliberate reconstruction of an inner foundation that can truly sustain the life your soul came here to live. To begin this work, a declaration of intent is required, an act of reclamation. Before we proceed, go down to the comments and write the 3 words that will define your journey from this day forward. I reclaim my power. Think of the last few months as a deliberate descent into the catacombs of your own soul. Pluto retrograde is not a walk in the park. It is a forced archaeology. It handed you a shovel and a lantern and said, "Dig," and you dug. You unearthed the relics of old pains, the fossils of traumas you thought were forgotten, and the foundations of beliefs that have been secretly ruling your life from underground. It was a period when the ghosts were not content to haunt. They sat at the table with you demanding to be seen. It was a time of confrontation. During that period, repetitive patterns became deafening. The same self-sabotage dynamic, the same type of conflict, the same feeling of powerlessness. What was once background noise became the only melody you could hear. Pluto retrograde functions like a darkroom mirror, reflecting not your appearance, but your internal machinery. It dragged into the light your deepest motivations, your silent power struggles, the way you give away your energy and the way you allow your energy to be drained. It was a period of immense discomfort, a long night in which the shadows became sharper, more defined, impossible to mistake for the dark. Now take a deep breath, because that cycle ends today. The retrograde is over. The phase of digging, of analysis, of retrospective has come to its end. Imagine the door to those catacombs closing with a heavy, final sound. You are back on the surface, with dirt still under your nails, and the smell of the underworld on your clothes. And you are not empty-handed. You have brought with you everything you found down there. The inconvenient truths, the painful revelations, the clarity about what no longer works. And herein lies the first and most important directive of Pluto direct. Nothing that was hidden and has been revealed can ever be ignored again. There is nowhere left to run. There are no more excuses. The fog of confusion that may have served as a refuge in recent months dissipates completely. To now try to say, "I don't know what to do," or "it's too complicated," is a form of spiritual dishonesty. And Pluto's energy does not tolerate dishonesty. It demands radical integrity. The invitation now is no longer to dig, but to look at what you have unearthed. to look at the patterns, the dynamics, the weaknesses, without running away, without blaming others, without playing the victim. It is the moment to take full responsibility for your own shadow. Taking responsibility is not the same as taking the blame. Blame is a low-frequency emotion that keeps you trapped in the past. Responsibility is a supreme act of power that anchors you in the present. It is the recognition that if you had the power to co-create these dynamics in your life, then you, and only you, have the power to dismantle them. It is the reclamation of your sovereignty as the architect of your reality. Pluto direct is not asking what others did to you. It is asking what you are going to do now with what you know about yourself. The retrospective has ended. The reconstruction work begins now. With the end of the retrospective, the energy shifts from inquisitive to executive. Pluto is no longer interested in showing you your patterns. It is interested in what you are going to do about them. And its first lesson, under its direct and implacable gaze, is this. Everything that was not resolved during the months of internal review does not disappear. On the contrary, it returns. But it doesn't return as an echo. It returns as thunder, not as a subtle crack in the wall. It returns as an earthquake that shakes the foundation. Everything that was swept under the rug, everything that was ignored, everything that was left for later, will now be amplified to a volume that makes denial impossible. This process of amplification is not a punishment. It is an act of severe mercy. The universe and your own soul are giving you one last opportunity to deal with these dynamics from a place of power before they calcify and become the destiny of your next few years. The toxic power dynamic at your job, your tendency for self-sabotage, your difficulty in setting boundaries, these issues will not just show up, they will present themselves to you in a scenario so clear, so undeniable, that you will be forced to a crossroads. And at this crossroads, your response will define everything. Herein lies today's most critical distinction. Pluto direct does not ask for your emotional reaction. It demands your deliberate decision. The emotional reaction is your autopilot, your past self taking control. It is the heat that rises to your face, the cutting response that jumps from your mouth, the feeling of victimhood that floods your system. To react is to abdicate your power. It is to allow the external trigger, the person or the situation, to become the master, and you, the puppet. Every time you react from the wound, you are feeding the very pattern you swear you want to break. You are watering the weed, reinforcing the bars of your own prison. The deliberate decision, on the other hand, is the act of the sovereign. It is the power that exists in the space of a single conscious breath. It is the ability to feel the wave of emotion rising, the anger, the fear, the pain, and instead of drowning in it, to observe it. It is the act of becoming the calm witness in the center of your own inner hurricane. And from that place of stillness, to choose, not based on what your past screams for you to do, but based on the future you are reclaiming. A deliberate decision can be silent. It can be a no said with calm. It can be the act of walking away from an argument. It can be the choice not to respond to a provocation. It is not about the grandiosity of the action, but about the clarity of the intention. To react is a spasm. To decide is an act of will. Every choice you make today, no matter how small it seems, is a seed. And there are only two types of seeds you can plant: seeds of power or seeds of stagnation. An emotional reaction plants a seed of stagnation. It strengthens the root of the old pattern and ensures that you will harvest the same bitter fruit in the future. A deliberate decision, on the other hand, plants a seed of power. It cuts the root of the old pattern and begins to nourish the soil for a completely new harvest. To make this practical and leave the realm of theory, your first act of power today is an act of clarity. Take a sheet of paper. This is your battlefield and your reconstruction site. List the recurring patterns that the retrograde has shown you. Be brutally honest. Then, next to each one, make a decision. Not a vague decision to get better, but a surgical one. I sever my need for external validation. I reorganize my response to criticism. I eliminate my tolerance for disrespect. The act of writing this is not just an exercise, it is a decree. It is you taking the sword of your consciousness and beginning the work of pruning what is dead, so that what is alive can finally grow. Pluto's work is, in its essence, work on power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. And one of the most uncomfortable truths that its retrograde phase has shown us is the myriad of subtle and unconscious ways in which we abdicate our own power. The power you have lost, delegated, given away in exchange for peace, acceptance, or security must now be reclaimed. This is not an act of aggression, but an act of integration. It is the return home, to the center of your own being, to your energetic sovereignty. Think of your power as your life force, your purest creative energy. Throughout life, without realizing it, we allow this force to leak. It leaks every time we say yes, when our soul screams no, just to avoid a conflict. It leaks every time we adopt someone else's opinion as our own, because it's easier than forming and defending our own. It leaks every time we make an important decision about our career, our body, our values, based on what our family, our partner, or society expects of us, instead of based on what our inner compass indicates. We live covered by layers of external influences, as if wearing other people's clothes, forgetting the feeling of our own skin. The energy of Pluto direct activates an almost surgical clarity. It hands you a scalpel of consciousness, allowing you for the first time to distinguish with precision what belongs to you from what is external influence. It is a process of purification. You will begin to hear your own voice, your intuition, with a sharpness that can be frightening. And in contrast, the voices of obligation, guilt, and external expectation will sound hollow, dissonant, like a poorly tuned radio station. Your job is to use that clarity to begin separating the threads. It is to look at every belief, every habit, every relationship, and ask, does this nourish my sovereignty or diminish it? Is this an expression of my truth or an echo of someone else's fear? It is here that we need to redefine the concept of autonomy. Our culture often confuses autonomy with stubbornness or with a cold selfishness, but that is a distortion. Stubbornness is a rigid reaction against something. It is the obstinacy of a child who refuses to be controlled. True autonomy is not a reaction. It is an emanation. It is internal coherence. It is the state in which your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in perfect alignment with your deepest truth, regardless of external validation or disapproval. Autonomy is not stubbornness, it is integrity. This coherence is your true power. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be aggressive. A truly autonomous person feels no need to prove anything to anyone. Their presence is enough. Their boundaries are clear, not because they shout them, but because they inhabit them. Their no is a silent decree, and their yes is an act of conscious creation. Achieving this state is not a gift. It is a discipline, and the mental discipline you choose to cultivate today will define the level of freedom you will experience in the coming months. The practice is simple, but it is not easy. It is to become the constant witness of your own inner world. Before every decision, no matter how small, pause, breathe, and ask, does this choice expand my sovereignty or contract it? Every time you choose expansion, every time you honor your inner voice over the outer noise, you are strengthening your autonomy muscle. You are reclaiming, piece by piece, the territory of your own soul. And in doing so, you cease to be a victim of circumstances and become the center of power from which your reality is created. If reclaiming autonomy is the act of claiming your throne, then deep layer cleansing is the act of purifying your kingdom. A sovereign cannot effectively rule a territory that is full of saboteurs, old laws that no longer serve, and poisons seeping into the water supply. The work of Pluto, direct, now that you are back in your center of power, is to help you identify and neutralize these internal threats. It brings to the surface everything that impedes your expansion and conscious action, obsolete mental patterns, limiting beliefs you have inherited, and dammed-up emotions that have been fermenting in your subconscious. Think of your mental field as a garden. Over the years, without your conscious permission, seeds of limiting beliefs were planted. Perhaps the seed of, "I am not good enough," planted by a childhood criticism. Perhaps the seed of "love is dangerous," planted by a broken heart. Or the seed of "success requires unbearable sacrifice," planted by observing your parents struggle. For a long time, these seeds grew in the shadows, turning into robust weeds that silently choked the flowers of your potential. They dictated your choices, sabotaged your opportunities, and limited the amount of joy you allowed yourself to feel. The energy of Pluto direct acts as a cosmic herbicide. It does not pull the weeds for you, but it illuminates them with a light so intense that it becomes impossible not to see them. Suddenly, you become painfully aware of the internal dialogue that diminishes you. You recognize, with uncomfortable clarity, how an old belief about money is blocking your abundance in the present. You see, as if in a movie, how an old story about not being worthy of love leads you to push away the people who care about you most. This moment of clarity is a crossroads, and here, Pluto teaches us one of its most important lessons. There is no room for judgment, only for decision. Judging yourself for having these beliefs is useless. It's like blaming the garden for having weeds. They grew in conditions that were favorable to them. Your power is not in lamenting the past, but in assuming your role as the gardener in the present. Your power lies in the decision. The decision to say, "I see this belief. I honor the protection it once tried to give me. And now, with love and firmness, I pull it out by the root." This same process applies to dammed-up emotions. The anger you swallowed, the sadness you didn't allow yourself to cry, the fear you disguised as cynicism. All of this is stagnant energy, polluting the water of your inner kingdom. Pluto direct brings these emotions to the surface to be felt and released. You may feel waves of seemingly random emotions arising this week. Do not run from them. They are the poison leaving your system. Allow yourself to feel them without attaching a story to them, and then let them go. Every tear cried, every scream muffled in a pillow is an act of purification. Every thought you consciously choose to reorganize today, every limiting belief you decide to challenge, every stagnant emotion you allow to move, strengthens your energetic base. This is not glamorous work. It is invisible, silent work that happens in the solitude of your own being. But it is the most important work you will ever do. Because by cleansing your inner kingdom, you build an invisible resilience. You become a sovereign whose power cannot be shaken by external storms, because your internal territory is a place of clarity, purity, and unshakable strength. Our conception of power is, for the most part, corrupted. We have been taught to associate it with what is visible, with what is loud, with what dominates the space. Power in our culture is the most eloquent speech, the strongest army, the most ostentatious wealth. But this is a superficial view, a mirage that distracts us from the true source of all strength. Pluto teaches us a different lesson. Real strength is not visible. It is measured by its coherence and its presence. It does not shout, it is. And the most effective way to cultivate this strength, especially now, is through the practice of strategic silence. This is not the silence of passivity or submission. It is the opposite. It is the silence of a chess master contemplating the board, the silence of a predator waiting for the right moment to act. It is an active, conscious, and immensely potent silence. It is an act of conserving and directing energy. Think of your life force as a finite amount of water in a container. Most of us live with a container full of holes. Our energy leaks in all directions, in worry about the future, in regret for the past, in gossip, in the need to have an opinion on everything, in the scattering of our attention across 100 notifications per hour. We live in a state of constant energetic hemorrhage, and then we wonder why we feel so powerless. The first act of strategic silence is to plug the holes. It is to avoid dispersal. And this, in the modern world, is an act of rebellion. It requires you to become the relentless guardian of your focus. Your attention is your most precious form of power. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Today, take an honest inventory. Where is your energy flowing? Is it nourishing your clearest goals and your inner peace? Or is it feeding distractions, other people's dramas, and the incessant noise of the world? Eliminating distractions is not an act of escapism. It is an act of war for your sovereignty. Every app you delete, every notification you turn off, every toxic conversation you walk away from is a hole you are plugging. It is you telling the universe, my energy is sacred, and I choose where I invest it. From this place of containment, strategic silence manifests in micro-actions of immense power. The first is the mastery of no. A no spoken from this new center is not an act of rejection, but an act of clarity. It is the silent affirmation of your energetic boundaries. Every conscious no to something that drains your energy is, in fact, a resounding yes to your own integrity, to your mission, to your peace. The second micro-action is the cutting of internal toxic links. This is the most subtle and profound work. We have incessant conversations in our minds with the voices of our past, the inner critic, the victim's voice, the echo of old hurts. Strategic silence is the deliberate refusal to participate in these conversations. It is the act of observing these thoughts as they arise and, instead of offering them your energy, allowing them to pass like clouds in the sky. It is cutting the energetic umbilical cord that keeps you tied to a past that no longer exists. You do not fight against these voices. You simply stop feeding them with your attention. And what is not fed eventually dies. By practicing this, something extraordinary happens. Your presence becomes dense, magnetic. You stop projecting your energy outward in search of validation or in reaction to chaos, and you begin to pull it back to your center. People will feel it. They will feel your calm, your solidity, your lack of neediness, and they will discover that your strength is not in what you say, but in what, with immense wisdom, you choose not to say and not to do. This is the silent power of Pluto, the power of one who masters their own inner kingdom with such mastery that they no longer need to try to control anything on the outside. The hardest work is done. The excavation is over, the purge is complete, and the strategic silence has been implemented. The dust from the internal demolition is now beginning to settle, and for the first time, you can clearly see the new foundation that has been built from the rubble of the old one. This is the moment of integration, the most subtle and perhaps the most crucial phase of the entire process. It is here that the energetic cycle stabilizes, not in a state of weakness, but in a state of consolidated power. It is imperative that you understand this. Pluto direct is not theory, it is applied action. Every decision you made, every no you uttered, every moment you chose observation over reaction was not a mere mental exercise. It was an act of energetic engineering. You were literally rewriting the source code of your own reality. You were ripping out old low-voltage cables and installing new wiring capable of withstanding a much higher current of power. What was once an aspiration, I want to be stronger, I want to have more boundaries, has now become an embodied reality. Your new foundation is not a blueprint, it is a physical structure in your energetic field. What does it mean, then, to reintegrate this new state? It means to begin inhabiting it. It means allowing your consciousness to expand, to fill this new structure, to become familiar with the feeling of solidity, to get used to the absence of the noise and drama that once defined your normalcy. What you reintegrate today, your new thought patterns, your new boundaries, your new autonomy, defines your magnetic field for the coming months. Think of the three pillars of this new foundation: presence, integrity, and silent power. These are no longer concepts to be studied, but qualities to be lived. Presence becomes your default state, your refusal to travel to the past or the future, anchoring you firmly in the power of now. Integrity becomes your compass, the unwavering coherence between what you know, what you say, and what you do, making you energetically illegible to manipulation and dishonesty. And silent power becomes your way of operating in the world, your ability to influence reality not through force, but through the stability of your own frequency. This restructured field works like a new type of magnet. It not only attracts experiences and people that resonate with your new frequency of power and clarity, but, perhaps more importantly, it actively repels what is no longer in alignment. The people who fed on your chaos, the situations that thrived on your lack of boundaries, the dynamics that depended on your weakness, all of them will begin to find your new energetic field uncomfortable, almost inhospitable. They will move away, not because of a conflict, but by a simple law of resonance. Your light has become too bright for their shadows. This is where your internal coherence changes the external. You don't need to fight to change the world around you. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. Your only job, from now on, is to maintain and inhabit this new inner space. By doing so, by becoming a tower of stability and integrity, the outer world will have no other choice but to reorganize itself around you. The right people will be drawn in. The right opportunities will appear, not by magic, but by physics. Your job is not to seek power, but to finally be the power. Pluto direct is more than a transit. It is the opportunity to rebuild your own energetic and mental foundation from a place of power and not of fear. Nothing that has not been adjusted will remain. The universe supports truth, and your truth is your strength. Power is not given to you, it is reclaimed. And the moment to reclaim it is now. If this message resonated with your soul, anchor this transformation. Like this video as an act of power and share it with those who are also ready to reclaim their sovereignty. To seal this decree in your energetic field and in the collective field, go to the comments and affirm with all your intention, I reclaim my power. Don't forget to subscribe. The reconstruction is continuous, and we will continue to strengthen our foundations together.